One of the things that we have to do if we're going to do this creativity stuff well is we have to be able to pay attention to our thinking. There are certain thought forms that serve us and certain thought forms that do not. In order to defer judgment, the first guideline for divergent thinking, we have to be able to notice when we are judging. And it's not good enough to just tell ourselves, don't judge. We have to put something else in its place. Now, this part of us that has this ability to notice our thinking, we call that metacognition, is a thing called will, where we exercise our will to shift from one form of thought to another form of thought. Now, fortunately, we can do this if we intend to. We have to be a bit vigilant and to notice when we do judge so that we can shift our thinking to a more productive pattern. But all human beings have this ability. There was a time that one of my partners, Debbie Allen, lives near us, Lake Placid, where the Olympics were in 1980, was going with a friend of hers to watch that friend's 12-year-old son make his first run off the highest ski jump in town. Now, this is a thing, a lot of local kids go through some of the training, and this is how we find Olympic athletes in our particular area. So Debbie's friend had said, could you please come, because I can't watch. I'm going to have to cover my eyes when he goes over this, and you tell me what's happening. So Debbie said, sure, I'll do that. So they go to the ski jump, and here's this boy, and he goes out, and he's sliding out on this little bar that they have to sit out before they're ready to jump. And he gets out on the bar, and he starts to come up, and then sits back down. And then he starts to come back up, get ready, and he sits back down. And he starts to come back up and sits back down. Now, Debbie's creating a story. Of course, she's thinking the poor kid's scared to death going off this thing. That's a reasonable story. Well, he finally sits up, goes, and lands it just perfectly. Afterwards, there's a party. And Debbie was talking to the guy at the party, and she says, so what was going on for you? It looked like you were pretty freaked out up there and scared. And he says, oh, no, I wasn't scared. The coach has trained us that when we get out on the bar and we're sitting there ready to go, we have to visualize the entire run from the moment we stand up and start sliding, while we're flying, and when we land, all the way to the point that we actually stop. And if during the mental flow of all of that, anything interrupts our thought, we have to start again until we can imagine ourselves go all the way through. The coaches have learned that that ability to hold that increases the likelihood of a successful jump. Well, what was happening for the poor kid is every time he'd start to shift up, out of the corner of his eye, he'd see his mother do this. So, of course, that's distracting him. And so, I can't go yet. And he'd sit back down until he finally was able to tune her out and then came up, landed it perfectly, did just fine. So if a 12-year-old can control his thinking enough to go flying off of one of these ski jumps, then you and I should be able to control our thinking well enough to notice when we're inappropriately judging and defer judgment until later on and put affirmative judgment in the place of that judgment that showed up in the first place.